To make his way to the ring, Jake Pollard. And now, ladies and gentlemen, set to make his way to the ring, Cain Lewis. Ladies and gentlemen, this fight is 6 rounds in a featherweight contest. Your referee in charge of the action, Pollard, and your timekeeper, Alex McKenzie. And now, introducing to you first, fighting out of the blue corner. Officially, he weighed in at 57.15 kilos. Tonight, he makes his 75th professional appearance inside the ring, wearing green camouflage shorts. From Bradford, Yorkshire, England, please welcome Jake Pollard. And now introducing his opponent across the ring in the red corner, officially weighing in at 57.3 kilos. He brings to the ring an undefeated record of 6-0 with 2 KOs. Tonight wearing black and gold shorts from Navan, Ireland, make some noise for King Cain Lewis.
And we're back now, the halfway point of tonight's show, fight number 5.
6 rounds for Cain Lewis here, going up against UK's Jake Pollard.
Yeah, and as the announcer pointed out there, this is Pollard's 75th professional fight. So, you know, a veteran of the game, and again, a guy who very, very rarely gets stopped.
Both fighters out here with a very fast pace to start. Lovely straights from Cain.
And we saw that from Cain Lewis in his previous fight here in May, where he he fought another guy who's fighting tonight in Yin Sasado, I believe it is, the wily Colombian who we saw with a lot of dirty tactics, you know,
that's right,
trying to use the head, trying to use the elbows, you know, and Cain passed that test. No, and it should definitely be pointed out, you know, is he 21, I believe, Tom Prower 18. You know, that's a learning on the job right there.
Absolutely, growing up in the pro scene. Yeah,
it's a job most men wouldn't fancy, but he's talked about like a duck to water. You know, he had an extremely tough fight, and I think it was his second fight. He was dropped twice in the round, got back up, managed to get a draw out of that fight. A guy who went on to fight for the Spanish title, and you know, he hasn't lost a round since.
I mean, obviously that was maybe something that made Cain push on with his career, or a lesson learned.
Oh, certainly, yeah. You know, we've saw it in the fight since. Composed, intelligent boxing. He's picking his shots. Like I said, hasn't lost a round. You know, he's not getting. He got drawn into a fight a little bit that night, and hasn't since.
And even you mentioned his last fight there in May, where there was a couple of lowbrow tactics from his opponent. I had the pleasure of sitting alongside his family that night, and Cain didn't seem phased. It was the audience that were phased by the tactics.
Yeah, and you know, to be such a young guy and be so composed in there, it's difficult. It's a testament to his team as well. You know, and he's been just picking the shots here tonight. He's in with Pollard, who knows how to not get stopped or not get caught. You know, but we're seeing some nice jabs from Cain. He's controlling the pace. He's landed that right to the body a couple of times as well. You know, that could slow an opponent down in the later round.
Little clinch work there now from Pollard, but I think every time Cain exchanges Pollard, as he comes back out, he moves and keeps the angles.
He does, and I know Pollard probably wasn't the first choice for tonight following Cain's good win back in May, but I believe a Celtic title might be on the horizon. You know, we'll see who the opponents could be. There's a number out there, both Irish, English, you know, the Scottish, there's Welsh guys out there too. And as far as I know, Cain Lewis is willing to fight them all. We've seen it, you know, Pollard knows how to survive.
As you get into round 2 now of 6.
More the same straight away from young Cain Lewis. Now back off the jab, straight punches, basic stuff, but it works.
Good work, nice direct work from Cain Lewis.
You know, and again, we see that big looping, almost swing of a shot from Pollard, but if you don't get out of the way of them,
little uppercut there from Lewis, now breaking the guard of Pollard.
yeah, you know, guys like Pollard know how to survive, and I mentioned it earlier tonight, it's a puzzle. You know, young guys like Cain have to figure it out, you know, put the right pieces into place, and you know, you can get a statement win here. To stop a guy like this will be massive.
Corner from Cain Lewis calling for body shots here.
Yeah, and they've been landing.
He's following instructions, lovely.
We're saying as well, you know, we've mentioned how young Cain is. We wonder, is this the weight, you know, with featherweight, you know, 57 kilos, you know, is that kind of where he's going to be at? Or I'd imagine there's some ground to be done in him as well, you know.
Yeah, is he going to grow into the weight class as he obviously ages?
You know, we could see a super featherweight or a lightweight here, you know, in 18 months, you know. Unfortunately, his weight division at the moment, you know, there isn't a lot domestically. But as he moves up, there's plenty of guys at super featherweight and lightweight to fight in Ireland. And, you know, the guys in the UK as well, I'm sure they're on his radar. It's been nice work so far, trying that little uppercut, and, you know, I think he will land it eventually.
He's mixing up the shots and the angles and staying bouncy on the feet. He's not hanging around to admire any of his work.
No, and again, he's finishing to the body. You like the tactics. He's getting Pollard to raise the elbows a little bit by tapping him to the head.
He's setting him up, setting traps for him.
Constant jabbing, and if anything, he'll at least get a good workout here tonight. And activity is the main thing, you know. You need to keep active. We've seen too many domestic guys having one fight every 8, 9, 10 months. It's just not enough.
A lovely head movement there as he moves out of the way of those big winging shots from Pollard.
Hey, you know, you can work on that in the gym, but when you're under the lights in front of the crowd, you have to still be able to get out of the way.
Absolutely, like we said earlier in the broadcast, it's very different underneath these bright lights.
Yeah, you know, we've had stage fright effectively from some fighters when you have all those people here.
As we get into round 3 here, coming at the halfway point of this bout.
Yeah, and he hasn't put a foot wrong so far, young Cain Lewis, and you know, he'll be happy with his performance. I'm sure his corner will too. He seems to be following instructions and saying that he hasn't had much coming back to trouble him.
Looks very, very comfortable. Even anything that Pollard's firing back, Cain doesn't look phased by any of it.
He's moving well too, and I'm liking his footwork tonight. You know, he's moving around with that jab. He's landing shots and getting out of there. You know, we saw 1 or 2 fighters earlier tonight who've kind of stood static after they've landed shots.
Yeah, I like that about Cain Lewis's game, that he uses the feet to get out. On the way out, he protects himself, but changing the angles and pivoting left and right.
Couldn't agree more. And we've seen even head movement when he's not throwing his punches, you know. Pollard taking a break here, happy to do that little dance around the ring.
I think he's maybe hoping that if he saps some of the energy of Cain Lewis, that the output will kind of diminish a small bit.
Yeah, I can't see that coming. No. He's like an Energizer bunny in there now tonight.
And like we were saying the previous round, he's tapping to the head or whatever else, and all of a sudden then he'll just rev the engine and fire to the body.
Yeah, and he has got fast hands. You know, I feel with Cain as well, as the level of opponents go up, we'll see a better him.
Yeah, like he'll rise to the occasion.
You know, we saw his manager, John O'Carroll, you know, recently lost a world title fight, and that's another guy, you know, to be learning from.
Absolutely.
You know, And they're similar in weight as well. I'm sure there's been a couple of spars there when they're in the same country, and there's a lot you could learn from a guy who's fought at that level.
The head movement is very, very impressive from Cain Lewis.
Yeah, and it's saying that, you know, there's been rumours recently of JB Promotions and IG Boxing, you know, Ian Cochran doing a 5 versus 5. And I noticed, you know, young Miles Casey, an amateur standout, he's recently turned pro. He has a second fight coming up, you know. I believe Cain Lewis and him would make for an excellent fight. That'd be something I think would bring a big crowd here.
And even when we spoke about, obviously, the team behind Cain Lewis has obviously been sparring as well with Dennis McCann, who's fighting tomorrow night on the card in the O2 in London on Derek Chisora and Joyce. So, I mean, even the training partners, the calibre of that is quite high.
Yeah, absolutely, you know, and Miles has his brother, former European champion Willie Casey, you know, so he comes from good stock. That would be a real good fight.
Absolutely, I remember when Big Bang won the prize fighter back in the day.
Some nice uppercuts there from Cain.
And we're off here again in round 4, kicking off into the second half of this bout.
Yeah, and it's been all Cain Lewis so far tonight. He showed a couple of elements to his game, you know, he's picking his shots. I'm sure there's been stuff he's working on in the gym, and he's in there with a semi-live opponent.
And the output then as well from Cain, a lot of his shots are very direct. He doesn't expel any unnecessary energy when he's throwing his shots.
No, he's quite accurate as well, and we've already alluded to his movement. He's making the feet help him be a little bit more accurate, you know, those split-second angles that he's creating.
Pollard now throwing a few shots back and asking a few questions of Cain.
Yeah, this is where we might see a little bit more from Pollard, which I hope we do, to be honest. He hasn't done a whole lot so far in this fight.
A little bit of clinch work there now from Pollard. I think he was just taking a moment off.
Yeah. Oh, another beautiful body shot from Cain Lewis. You know, and that's a testament. Guys like this don't go down too easy.
Now it'll be interesting to see what Cain does from here. Does he put the foot down?
He's been working those body shots all night, you know.
That's it. And he's back at it again.
And we see Pollard is in there to survive now.
Yeah, he's not enjoying those body shots from Cain Lewis. Big shot to the body again from Cain. Pollard looking to wrestle here now and smother the work.
Yeah, Pollard doesn't want to be hit by one of those shots again.
Oh, another one.
Oh.
They are big shots to the body. Pollard flung to the ground. He did initiate the wrestling match, so.
He did. No, Pollard having only been stopped 4 times in a 75 fight career. That would be a massive statement. You know, this is fight number 16 of 2024 for Jake Pollard.
Cain Lewis is back to that, tapping to the head and ripping to the body.
You know, those body shots are really
they're stacking up.
in.
Another big shot again from Cain to the body.
I can see Pollard wilting, and he's holding every chance he gets. You know, these are things that Cain Lewis will have to learn how to deal with this from guys. You know, when you have an opponent spoiling, what do you do? How do you get out of there? How do you take that little short step back?
Great round for Cain Lewis. As we kick off here in round 5, it'll be interesting to see what shape Pollard is in coming back from being dropped there in the last.
Yeah, they were some spiteful body shots, you know, and it's a lot harder to recover from them than when you're buzzed to the head.
Now it looks like Pollard is protecting the body and kind of leaving himself open up top.
And I suppose a big thing to know as well is that Pollard has a fight scheduled for next month, and if he gets stopped, you know, he's a mandatory 28-day ban, so that's money out of his pocket. He wants to survive here. Punch perfect so far tonight though from young Cain Lewis, and he can be proud of himself already.
And that uppercut coming in, splitting the guard there.
Two hooks to the body there.
And you can see that those body shots are stacking up. The pace of Pollard and his output has definitely slowed.
Yeah, it certainly has. He wasn't throwing an awful lot, but now he's not throwing much at all. He's flicking those jabs out the thin air.
Now, from my point of view, the body has kind of been covered up by Pollard, so I'd like to see Cain maybe throw the same amount of power and venom to the head and kind of just mix it up a small bit, because Pollard looks like he's closing up down below.
Yeah, throw those hooks around the side of the gloves, you know. Touch the ears, tap the head and touch the side of the head rather than the body. Pollard, I think now, was expecting the body shots after the jabs.
And you can even see that then when Pollard's throwing back any jabs, there's a small bit of hesitation when he's throwing it, because he's trying to get those elbows back into his body.
Yeah, you know, the guard is impressive. He's covered a lot up. You know, you have to appreciate how tough these men are. You know, these away fighters do this week in, week out, and know how to survive. That's a tactic and a skill in itself.
As we're in the second last round here, Cain's output is still very high, still moving as he was in the first round, bouncing on the toes.
You know, it's round 11 for Cain in the last 2 months, you know, and that's exactly what he needs. And I've no doubt the plan going forward now will be to try get him a Celtic title fight. You know, he's done his apprenticeship.
And even you said as well, the activity as well. He's not a slow starter, and that attributes to how active he is.
No,
he
he's
just picks up exactly where the last fight left off.
And he listens as well, as we've seen. You know, he's sticking to a game plan. He's executing it. Let's see if he can do that at title level.
Here we go with the last round here now of tonight's bout.
We see a bit of swelling there in the right eye of Pollard in his corner. We're applying ice there, and it's quite red. It shows you just the accuracy of Cain Lewis tonight, as well as the body shots that he hurt Pollard with.
And as you mentioned, the accuracy there, Cain lands square on the chin of Pollard.
You know, Pollard mainly, you know, fights debutants in the UK, guys with less than 5 or 6 fights. He's earned his few quid tonight. He'll know he was in a fight in the morning.
Absolutely, those body shots have definitely added up. I wouldn't like to be him in the morning.
I think he's been in with a very good fighter in Cain Lewis, probably a little bit above the level that he's usually in with as well. So fair play to Pollard for sticking in there, and he's still having a go.
And like you said, if he has a schedule bout, I think he just wants to survive also, you know what I mean?
Yeah, he
so
does.
he has to offer something back.
You know, that's food off the table for himself. That's this is these guys' job.
A little bit of holding now and clinching there from Pollard.
Run the clock down now at this stage. Try take his little punishment and no more of those body shots. But again, composure, hands are up, you know, the basics are working for Cain Lewis. His feet are still going well, you know, it's the second 6th rounder now in a couple of months. I wonder is 8 next.
And just as you mentioned there, a little bit of a cut over the right eye of Pollard. Maybe from those exchanges in the clinch.
Yeah, you know, even a cut isn't ideal for a guy who has to fight again in a couple of weeks.
Very, very impressive outing from Cain Lewis tonight. I am very looking forward to the possible domestic matchups he has coming his way.
No, absolutely. Punch perfect tonight, you know. Not to say he wasn't back in May, but he was in against an opponent, you know, that antagonised him a little bit and had to see him switch his tactics up. Tonight he's just boxed behind the jab. Look at the footwork there.
Absolutely fantastic. And even as Pollard tries to spoil his work, I can't even get a hold of him.
Those little things we spoke about in the last round, figuring out the puzzle. In less than 3 minutes, he's already figured out, no, I'm not letting you get me.
And he's boxing at his range as well. He's just has Pollard at the end of his punches.
We're watching a young Irish fighter here who's learning exceptionally fast on the job. There's exciting fights in Cain Lewis's future.
Ladies and gentlemen, after 6 great rounds of boxing, we once again go to the referee scorecards. Referee Portugal Roctagon scores the bout 60 points to 53 in favor of your winner, King Cain Lewis.